All right, so Obi-Wan, episode number 3. Kind of my first overall thoughts. I really enjoyed this episode. I don't think any episode has been perfect to this point. I think you could kind of nitpick and pick apart any episode to this point, like all 3. They've had some good, some bad, and some really good, even some great, to be honest. But overall, episode 3, I really liked it. There are some small things that I'm still questioning. There's some stuff that I'm not sure about, and we still have like 3 episodes to go, so I'm sure some things are gonna get answered, hopefully, as we kind of go. But overall, I probably give it like an 8 out of 10 for me, just because I think the nostalgia gives it an extra kind of boost in the points, just because Vader, I mean, Vader is Vader. Like, there's really nothing else you could say about that. He's probably one of my favorite characters ever created, and his story is just so insane. So jumping into kind of the specifics of the episode, it starts with a pretty dope scene of Vader getting assembled, and Obi-Wan is sitting there meditating, trying to connect to Qui-Gon, which we've seen him do a bunch at this point. And I think, so the Qui-Gon thing is going to be interesting. My initial thought was like, okay, now he's going to reach out to Obi-Wan. Now he's going to be able to communicate with him, because it feels like once we get to the end of this episode, Obi-Wan's kind of at the like official rock bottom that he could possibly be in. But I think it's going to come later than that, and we could talk about when we get there. But he's trying to communicate to Qui-Gon, trying to like talk to his master, and we're also hearing scenes from Revenge of the Sith and Anakin screaming all the crazy shit that is like super emotional that Anakin said at the end of Revenge of the Sith before he got struck down. So powerful, so emotional, so simple. Just Obi-Wan sitting there meditating, and we're hearing all this stuff presumably going on in his head, which is probably creating a lot of emotion, a lot of impact. And then we go over to seeing Vader, which he sounded amazing. I feel like we were listening to like the original Vader. He was talking to Reva about some stuff, and I thought he sounded great. I didn't have any issues with his look. I probably got to go back and look closer. Like, I'm not like a super expert where I could like nitpick and like pick out like, oh, this part of the suit's wrong. Like, I don't have that knowledge. But I thought he looked great. I thought he sounded amazing. And him and Reva were basically talking about her ambitions. And there's clearly something going on with Reva, and I think it's going to get revealed as we go. I think it's clear and obvious that she was one of the Padawans at the Jedi Temple, and she experienced some stuff that, you know, she felt betrayed by the Jedi, by Obi-Wan Kenobi, because he was one of the leaders of the Jedi and everything that was going on there, and blames him like Vader does. She blames him for everything. But I definitely think that Reva's former Padawan building to be a Jedi, and I think there's something that happens later in this episode that I thought was really interesting. But I also saw a theory that she could potentially be a spy, which I thought was an interesting theory. I don't think it's true. I don't think she's necessarily working for Vader or working for the Rebellion, which that doesn't necessarily exist yet, or working for the Jedi or anything like that. But I thought it was a really interesting thing. There's definitely something big about her going on, and I think she's been great. Through these first 3 episodes, I feel like a character in that position, with what we do know of her, I think Reva's been really good. I continuously have compared her to like a young Anakin, and kind of even like a Kylo Ren, where we've seen these light side users who have gone dark being so obsessed to a point where they almost come across as annoying. And I think it's absolutely perfect. I think it fits. I think it works. I think we've got a track record there. Just the obsessiveness and the desire and just the wanting of more all the time. And she's clearly obsessed with Obi-Wan. So I think the fact that she's feuding with the other Inquisitors, the fact that she took out the Grand Inquisitor, I think it all fits. I think it works. I don't think it's that far out of like left field that Inquisitors would try to kill each other and try to one-up each other and try to get those promotions, because that's what we saw. She wants to become Grand Inquisitor. So it's one of those things where I don't, at this point, have any issues with her inclusion into this storyline in this timeline. I don't think there's been any issues to this point. But we'll see kind of where her story goes, because I'm actually very curious. And then we catch back up with Obi-Wan and Leia, and they're having a conversation about the Force. I absolutely loved this moment. And Leia's just like anyone, like we always see, like, what is the Force? How does it work? She's trying to get information and understanding for it. And the way Obi-Wan described it, I thought was so perfect. It's like turning on the light when you're scared of the dark. That is so great. I love it. It's so simple, but yet such a strong statement. I absolutely loved that line, and I've pretty much loved every encounter that we've had to this point with Leia and Obi-Wan. I think Leia has been the star of the show to this point. I mean, Ewan McGregor's been, he's amazing as Obi-Wan. There's no questions about that. But I think little Leia has been absolutely fantastic, and I kind of noticed that Obi-Wan didn't mention anything about midichlorian. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Don't kill me. But Obi-Wan and Leia show up on this new planet, and they're trying to find a safe way to get Leia home. And Obi-Wan has like this hallucination. He sees a hooded figure out in the distance, and I had to go back, zoomed in. I'm like, holy shit, that was fucking Anakin. He's seeing Anakin out in the damn desert. It's just another one of those moments where it's like he's just being tormented by what happened and what is going on. And it was just one of those things where it's like, damn, dude, you're seeing things? Horrible. It was a very creepy moment. But the Inquisitors have another fight. They're talking, and the fifth brother, he's been pissed off with Reva since the beginning. And, the Grand Inquisitor is gone, and Reva thinks that she's in control. She had the conversation with Vader. So she sets the plan, and they go find Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan and Leia get a ride, but then they run into a whole bunch of stormtroopers. And in front of the stormtroopers, they're going by these different names, and Obi-Wan accidentally calls Leia by her name, and Stormtrooper's like, what? Leia? I thought her name was and Stormtroopers are dumb. The dude was literally sitting right in front of you. But they get into a shootout. Obi-Wan wins. He is, despite his hate for blasters, he's pretty good with it. He does a really good job with the blasters, so he doesn't miss, unlike the Stormtroopers who always miss. But more Stormtroopers show up. Things get a little bit heated, but then an ally pops in wearing an Imperial outfit, and we find out that she defected and things changed, and so she's there to help Obi-Wan. We meet a droid named Ned B. Now, I don't even think I put Ned B in the reaction video, but I've been seeing some chatter online, and I think this is really interesting, that ain't no damn droid. There's some speculation that there could be a human being inside that droid, which, holy shit. And the possibilities of who that could be hiding as a droid, there's a lot of options. And we could talk about that a little bit later, but absolutely insane. Like I went back and kind of rewatched the episode. You could kind of tell the movements aren't necessarily droid movements. The droid was holding the hammer behind its back. That's not necessarily a droid. Like that felt like a human action. I don't know. Maybe reading too much into some of those theories. But people got some crazy shit, and I think they're a lot of fun. And I think they create really fun talking points. Who knows? The droid doesn't talk. So, kind of move like had human movements. It's kind of interesting. But, of course, everyone share your thoughts on that, because it's kind of fun. We learned that Quinlan Vos is alive. I know the name Quinlan Vos. I need to do a little bit more homework on him. Obi-Wan seemed to be very happy that he's alive, and that he was at this rescue for the Jedi. Pretty cool. I'm wondering if Voss is going to show up at any point and how that's going to play into the story. Vader arrives, and Obi-Wan essentially has like a meltdown. He could sense him. He has a breakdown. They could feel each other. And Vader, this scene with Vader was intense. Walking through town, destroying these people's homes, pulling people out of their homes. He fucking snapped a child's neck in half. Like, bro, can we stop killing the kids? I know you seem to have a thing for it. Can we stop killing the damn kids? That shit was ruthless. And as horrible of a scene as it was, it's like seeing that side of Vader is just so big for the story. It's just getting that side of him it just takes his character to like an even more horrifying level. Crazy, absolutely insane. I did not expect that from him. Again, that just, like, if we saw like what we saw in Revenge of the Sith and then like what we saw in this episode, I think it'd be a lot harder to redeem Vader. Like, we've seen some pretty ruthless shit from him, and it's like, wait, you end up being, you are redeemed. Oh, okay. That makes the story a little bit harder. But regardless, I absolutely love his redemption. But Obi-Wan flees, Leia gets away, and they start going down the tunnel to exit. And probably the best line of this show to this point, Obi-Wan looks at Vader, and I thought we were going to get a lot more dialogue from Obi-Wan. That's one of my kind of nitpicks. But Obi-Wan says, "What have you become?" And Vader's response is, "I am what you made me." Holy, I thought that was perfect. I thought that line was so good. And for a guy like, I could guarantee that Vader could sense his fear. He could like sense everything that at this point that Vader's dealing with, or what Obi-Wan's dealing with. And that line 100% struck to the core. That hurt Obi-Wan even more than he was already feeling. Like, we're taking you down peg by peg here. We're just breaking you down even more and even more and even more, and you're just going to be such a broken dude. But I absolutely love that line. I thought it was perfect, and I thought it worked so well. They end up fighting, they strike lightsabers, they connect, and Obi-Wan is clearly very weak, as he should be. And it's one of those things where from the moment that they start fighting, I think it's pretty obvious that Vader's just toying with him. He's fucking around with him. He knows that he's weak. He even tells him that you've gotten weak in your old age. And he's basically just fighting him with one hand. He's just sitting there with his saber, just like, whatever Obi-Wan's doing, he's just stopping it. And then he's force pushing him around. Vader is basically just playing with his food. And he wants to torture him. He wants to beat him up. He wants to horrify him. He did not want this to be if he wanted to be a quick death, I don't think we would ever see Obi-Wan in A New Hope. If Vader wanted him dead, he would have killed him in a split second, if that's what he wanted. I think it's pretty clear it's not what he wanted. Reva finds a Jedi logo as she's like kind of looking around. She looks a little conflicted there, which I thought was kind of interesting, and she gets a little angry. So I think 100% former Jedi, Padawan, youngling, whatever it is, but she was in the temple. She was being trained to be Jedi, and I think there's still conflict in her. I think it's pretty obvious that there's definitely conflict. And we get back to Vader getting control of Obi-Wan. He like friggin' grabs him and just starts torturing him. He lights a fire. This is probably one of the most brutal scenes of anything that we've ever seen in Star Wars. He just pulls Obi-Wan through the fire as Obi-Wan is sitting there screaming, burning, being tortured. Vader's like, "Now you will suffer. Your pain has just begun." And it's clear. He just wants him to suffer. And the ending of this whole situation is where things get a little dicey and a little questionable, in my opinion. But the assistant shows up, saves Obi-Wan, starts another fire, and Vader just kind of stands there as the droid shows up, rescues Obi-Wan, and they flee. That whole thing was like, Vader ordered the stormtroopers to go get him. They didn't go get him. They couldn't get around. Vader has obviously known abilities to be able to jump shit. His suit's supposed to be fireproof, walking through. But I think there's a level of hesitation there just because of what happened the last time they fought. I think it makes sense. I think it fits. Because the last time there was fire around and Obi-Wan and Anakin were fighting, the dude got cocky and he was like, "You underestimate my power." He jumps, don't try it, dices him into pieces. Basically should have left him there to die. But I think part of it has to do with that. I think part of it has to do with the fact that I don't think Vader wanted him dead in that moment. And I think Vader knows that there's going to be another fight. There's going to be another altercation. There's going to be another situation where Obi-Wan and Vader fight. I mean, for the canon's sake of Star Wars, now it has to happen. Because clearly Vader looked like the master in that moment. They're going to have to fight again, and they're going to have an encounter. Obi-Wan's going to have his Rocky moment and Hulk up and whoop the shit out of Vader and leave Vader in just a moment of like, holy shit, well, maybe I'm not the master. Maybe I still got a lot to learn. So yeah, they're going to fight again. I think we're going to see more peak Obi-Wan in that situation. But the episode runs, Leia runs into Reva. They left her alone to go find this pilot alone in a cave, alone with Vader Inquisitors running around. I mean, they had to go save Obi-Wan. So I don't know. But leaving her alone, it just seems off. Leaving Luke alone for this long seems off. But overall, I thought it was a really good episode. I thought the dialogue was a little light, but I thought it was impactful. I thought it was good. And I just can't wait to see where more goes. Kind of talked about why I thought Vader was hesitant. I feel like that's the biggest critique coming out of that moment. I think it fits. And I think we're going to find out more information about his intentions. Why was he so passive? I kind of thought Vader would be a little more aggressive. 10 years searching for Obi-Wan and this anger building up for all these years. I for sure thought he was just going to bull rush him and just attack him and try to be super aggressive and kill him. But that wasn't the case. I think he has a plan. I think maybe the 10-year gap allowed Vader to focus and meditate and build his plan for what he wanted to do with Obi-Wan versus seeing him and just charging at him and potentially losing. And I also think part of it has to do with the fact that he felt how weak he was. What kind of trophy is a broken Obi-Wan Kenobi for Vader? What is that going to give him in terms of accomplishment? Is that going to solve anything? Is that going to give him his revenge? Is that going to bring Padme back? I don't know. I don't think we could be fully critical of it until we see it play out. But yeah, I thought it was strong. I thought it was good. I thought it was very enjoyable. Seeing them back on screen together was just insane. I'm hoping that we get maybe an Anakin and Obi-Wan flashback, maybe a Clone Wars flashback or Revenge of the Sith flashback, an actual strong memory with the two of them. But yeah, overall I thought it was good. Just a couple other little notes that I wrote down here. I think if the Grand Inquisitor's dead, which I don't think he's dead, I think he's going to heal. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance. I think he's going to come back heated. But if for some reason they decide to go that route, I think that would be horrible. I think that'd be a bad move. I don't think retconning Rebels is a good idea. I don't think promoting someone else who looks like the Grand Inquisitor is a good idea. I don't think altering that storyline at all is a good idea. But then again, what do I know? I'm just a fan. I don't create Star Wars. I don't write Star Wars. I just think that would be a really, really weird story element to introduce at this point. And again, I've said it many times. I take canon very seriously. I take it more seriously than I probably should. I just really enjoy cohesive storytelling. And I like when things can line up and match and fit and work. Episode 3, I thought it was good. I think we're definitely going to lead to another encounter. I think we're going to get a lot more information on Reva. I think she's probably going to end up betraying the Empire somewhere and doing something to get herself hurt. I don't see her surviving this show unless there's another season. So maybe her demise comes later. But I don't see her getting out of the Obi-Wan show. I don't think she's going to get a future spinoff or anything just because of the timeline. But overall, I very much enjoyed the episode. I thought it was really good. Vader should have crushed the loader droid and used the Force to extinguish the fire. Vader should have done a lot of things there. I think that's kind of why there's such a question mark with that moment. It's just one of those things where I think we're going to get more explanation to what Vader's plan was and what he actually was doing. If they don't, then that would just be weird. That he would just let him go so easily and not actually attack him. But I think that's definitely one of the biggest critiques and biggest question marks coming out of it. It's not bad writing until we see where it goes. Vader just might be fuck it, let him go. We're going to get him another time kind of thing. I think there's a lot more to come. I don't think people are just so quick to jump on the bad writing aspect of something without actually seeing how the whole situation plays. That wasn't the end. We're going to get more. And I think it's just kind of a taste of what we're going to get. I think there's going to be, if there isn't more, then yes, bad writing, bad story, doesn't make sense to make Vader that passive.
I think Reva wants to rank up to get close enough to kill Vader because she saw him during Order 66. Gives them an excuse to show us another scene maybe?
I mean, there's definitely going to be something along those lines with her. She's clearly got a lot of experience with this. She has a lot of experience with Obi-Wan, with Anakin, with the Jedi. Still the biggest question for me about her is how she knows that Anakin's Vader. Are they going to be loose with that idea that Vader tells people in this show? Is that going to be canon? That shouldn't be canon. I think Vader 100% should stay super strict to the idea that no one knows Anakin's Vader. And if she somehow uses her mind control ability, which she has a very, very strong mind control ability, I'll be probably really fired up if she was able to penetrate Vader's mind and get that information. It makes the most sense that she was there at the temple, Order 66. She knew Anakin. She saw troopers calling her Vader. Regardless of what the situation, she was there. And I think that's where the information comes from for her. I think that's where she gets that knowledge. Miles says, so in my opinion, it would have been cool if Vader did not make the fire, and later when Tara created the fire to block them off to save Obi-Wan, and he's a bit scared by it. It would add so much to his character, in my opinion, especially because I enjoy flawed villains more, and it would make sense for him to be scared by fire. It doesn't have to be a phobia, but not being bothered a bit by it kind of feels flat to me. Would have been a cool chance, but that's not a complaint, more a wish. Yeah, I could see that, but on the flip side of that argument, he built his castle on Mustafar. I don't see fire being an issue for Vader. I feel like he's like embraced it, but I think he wanted to torture Obi-Wan to the maximum, and putting him through the fire is probably one of the worst things that he could do, since that's basically what Obi-Wan did to Vader. The fire Vader scared thing, I don't know about that, just because dude's kind of embracing it. He kind of lives there now. Do you reckon there'll be a moment that Anakin comes through over Vader in the end? Like a chance to finally kill off Obi-Wan, but he ends up letting him go. At this point, I think that might have been the opportunity for that to happen. I think their next encounter is going to be Obi-Wan whooping his ass, because otherwise the line in A New Hope's not gonna connect. I think there's gonna be a moment where they're fighting. I think, this is what I talked about. This is what I was mentioning with Qui-Gon earlier. I think they're gonna be fighting. I think Obi-Wan's gonna do everything he can to prepare. And I feel like the best case scenario is Obi-Wan's going to be losing. And much like the Rey situation in The Force Awakens, except it's actually going to make sense because Qui-Gon's going to show up for Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's already such an established, powerful, masterful Jedi. I think Qui-Gon's going to come to him in that moment, and then he's going to turn it on and whoop Vader. I think that's my best case scenario for that situation. And then Obi-Wan's going to get away. He's going to leave. He's more machine now than man. Anakin's not there. Vader is taken over. But in that scenario, you kill so many birds with one stone. Obi-Wan whooping his ass gives you the idea that Obi-Wan's still the master. It gives you the line where he's more machine now than man, and then the Vader line with Luke talking about Obi-Wan once thought as you did. All of that could happen in that final fight. Having Qui-Gon show up now and just being like, oh, you gotta do this, might not be as impactful. I've seen this idea brought up a couple different times where it's like Qui-Gon's gonna be his Mick to Obi-Wan's Rocky, and it's like, you get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you kind of moment. And he's gonna get motivated, he's gonna build up, he's gonna Hulk out, and he's gonna be the Master Jedi that we know him to be. Iron Minotaur, in my opinion, Vader treated Obi-Wan like a hunter toying with his prey, or a psychological warfare kind of deal. Like, no joke, that whole last stretch turned into a legit horror movie, and I loved every second of it. 100%. I totally agree with that. I don't, like, even just watching him fight Obi-Wan, he's literally fighting him with one hand. He's not trying to go hard with the two-handed fighting. Like, he's using one hand. He's just basically like boom, 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 force push. He's like, you're weak, old man. But yeah, I 100% think that he felt how weak he was. I don't think he viewed it as a scenario where he wanted to take him out in that moment. And I think Vader knows that they're going to get another encounter, and he's going to be able to handle the situation then, even though we all know, spoiler alert, Obi-Wan lives, Vader lives. So, yeah.